Hi guys, Asmo here, and in this video I'm going to finally reveal and explain everything I can possibly tell you about my league starter, which was the Soulwrest Necromancer Summoner. It is a build that I did not recommend before the league because it is way too complicated the way I play it. People will just have way too many questions, and if you don't know what you're doing, I do not recommend rolling this build. That being said, I think this is the strongest starter bossing build that I have played so far. It was stronger than the miner, the bosses were easier than the miner. On day 2, like at the end of day 2, I was able to do Uber Elder, Elder, Shaper, all the Guardian invitations. It was very easy to do that. Like I was farming Uber Elder, and I was farming Elder and Shaper, and I was doing like the double Guardian thing. So I was just buying Guardian maps and running those. It was very nice, made some extra currency that I am now investing into another character, and this build I am not developing any further. You can follow another Soulwrest guide if you wanna learn how to push it in the end game. This guide will tell you exactly what you need to do if you want one of the best cheap budget boss killers in the game and league starters in general. This build did ultimatums in an open space maps. I can do like full ultimatums. I skip ultimatums that are in like a really tight space, like in like a really little corridor. But if it's like a big open space, this does like full ultimatums in T16s, no problem. The build is very smooth. It's pretty quick. It has nice clear, and it has good boss damage. However, it has a lot of drawbacks, and it is super specific, complicated build. So if you are going to be playing this build, I recommend watching this whole video until the end, because I'm going to be talking about some quite unintuitive interactions that you might not be aware of when you're starting this. I definitely learned a lot playing this build and making this build and preparing to play this build. So let's get started from the beginning. First of all, how to level the build. I recommend leveling it according to the guide I have for leveling a Necromancer. You can level it that way in like 4 hours to maps. That's how long it takes me. There are people who can do it faster, there are people who can do it slower, but that's like the quick way to level that build. So you level it as a Necromancer with zombies and skeletons, and you can follow the guide. I will put the guide in the description, and it will basically say how to level the build. Next, in terms of let's talk about in terms of the gear. Okay, let's start with the gear. So the gear that you're going to need to transition into the build is going to be Soulwrest, is going to be Victorious Influence, and it's going to be Triad Grip. Those are the necessary things. And then I recommend also picking up at the same time the Jinx, Juju, and Darkness Enthroned, because they are simply cheap, very effective uniques that you should have. So that's what you need to switch to the build. Your priority should be Soulwrest. You can look for Horticrafting, like store in Horticrafting Station if you find crafts for like re-rolling the sockets, and just stockpile a lot of jewelers. That's how you get the 6 sockets. So you only need 6 sockets, you don't need it to be linked, and then the colors you're looking for is 2 green. You could also go for 3 green and the rest blue, okay? You don't use any red, no red socket helps us. We need at least 2 green, so like 2 or 3 green. I go always for 2 green because that's the easiest one, but you randomly might sometimes roll 3. If you roll 3 green, this is still fine, you can still do that. But 2 green is what you want, and the rest blue. The way you do that, the easiest, is actually by just chromatic spam. You just chromatic spam until you get that. That's the most cost efficient way of doing it. A more time efficient way is to do the craft with minimum green sockets, at least 2 sockets. So rolling this is gonna cost you on average more chromatics, but it's gonna be faster. Right, so that's the first thing that you need. The second item that you need is going to be the Triad Grip, and this one you need to color in all green. In order to do that, you need also this recipe, which is at least 2 green sockets, and then you need the recipe for 3 sockets and 4 sockets. How do you get these recipes? You need to go to Delve, right? Once you get to maps, here's how you do it. I'll show you my Delve, okay? Because this needs to be explained, because this information doesn't exist on POE wiki, it doesn't exist in game, nobody will tell you that. So I'll tell you how to get them the quickest, okay? So here's what you need to do. Once you finish maps, you will have automatic progress, okay? So automatic progress will take you, let's say, to here, okay? Now, in order to get the first craft with the colors, you just do the first thing at the very beginning, right? You just go to the first node, you're gonna get the craft with the chromatic colors. The second node that you wanna go for is called the Azurite Vault, right? So like Azurite Cavity is gonna give you the first craft. Now then you need to go to Azurite Vault, but it cannot be just any Azurite Vault. It has to be lower than the automatic progression that you got taken to. So in my case, I would have to go, this is the same height, so I actually don't know if the same height, same depth would work, but it has to be lower. So in my case, my automatic delve progression took me like to here, okay, or to here, right? So I knew I need to go here to a level that is lower. I couldn't go to this one, for example, right? Because my automatic progression took me to this one, so this one would not give me the recipe. I tested this before this league start, and I picked like multiple nodes in here, and none of them worked. Only once I got deeper than the automatic delve progression, that's when I got it, right? So you need to make sure that the vault that you go to is lower than your automatic progression, right? Otherwise, you might not get the craft. So that is how you get it quickly and efficiently without wasting sulfite, because the sulfite that you get from the story, just clicking on sulfite will be enough. So that's the minimum amount of delving you need to do. And then in order to color that, what you do is you first you do the 2 green, right? So you go to at least 2 green sockets, and then you put at least 2 green sockets, and then you put the item in and do 3 sockets if it didn't roll the 3rd socket, because these 2 are going to always stay. So if it didn't roll green, then you just go again 2 sockets, back to 2 sockets, 3 sockets again, back to 2, 3 again, back to 2, 3 again, until you roll the green one. Once you have the 3rd green one, then you go 4 sockets. If it's not green, you go back to 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, until you get the last one green. That's how you color your Triad Grip. That is the cheapest and most cost-effective way of making them for green. And the reason why we're doing them for green is because we are converting all of our minion damage to cold. So that way all of our minion damage is gonna be cold. The cold damage is very easy to scale. It's the best thing to scale because of how hatred works. It basically like double dips. First of all, it gives you some of the physical damage that they're dealing as cold, and then it scales all of that as well again for like more cold damage, right? So that's why we're going for cold. Victario's influence, it doesn't need to be linked. You only need to have like 1 tool link and another tool link. So you need to link Scatterbots with Bone Chill, and you need to link Calling Strike with Carrion Golem. Nothing else needs to be linked. What you care about is the fact that it gives you +1 to the aura gems and level 30 generosity and reduced reservation, right? And also the effect of auras. It's massive buff. So we're using for the auras, we're using Scatterbots, Hatred, and Zealotry, right? Because the specters are actually spellcasters. Not everybody knows this, but specters are spellcasters, and specters are what we are scaling the damage of, right? So that's another item. The next item is the Jinx Juju, which basically gives you some Chaos Rest, Strength, and Dex, which you need, and then it gives you the effect of your curses. So effect of auras, effect of curses and effect of auras, which are both very good, and makes you a bit tankier, makes the specters take 10% of damage from hits for you. So this is a very cheap, very cost-effective unique. In terms of the anointment, I recommend going like manually through the nodes for Ravenous Horde and anointing Runesmith, because that way you're gonna get the 5% more damage, because you're always gonna use Arcanist Brand, right, on your enemies. So they're gonna have Arcanist Brands attached to them, and it's gonna be doing more damage. But then once you get good second cluster jewel setup, then you can take out these nodes and anoint Ravenous Horde instead and go for like second cluster jewel setup. But that would be something that would be like more budget, like more expensive than what I'm doing, right? So that's the next item. After that, the items that you want to prioritize is you want to search for a helmet, ideally with a good enchant, basically like any mana reservation thing, anything that affects any of the skills you wear. So that would be like 15 different enchants that you could look for. And you want to look for helmet with +2 to socketed minion gems, and then some life and res on that. I had life searches for all of these items and 4 jewels throughout the start of the league, which helped me immensely. You definitely want to set up like life searches at the beginning of the league so that you can find these items easily, because otherwise it's going to be very, very difficult, because there are very, very specific items that you need. Other than that, you want to have a ring that is an unset ring with as much life and res on it as you can, and boots with as much life and res on it as you can, plus as much movement speed as you can get, right? In terms of the ring, the belt, Darkness and Taunt is fairly cheap. It's very, very cheap early on, and you want to put good jewels in it. So you want to put jewels in it that have like good stats, like you have some extra life, you have some extra elemental resistances, minion cast speed, and minion damage, like good jewels like that. That's what you want to put into this, right? It will help you get your out of resist and life. In terms of the flasks, I recommend Roomies, I recommend movement speed stuff, and I recommend Chemist's Quartz Flask, right? So, not Chemist, just Quartz Flask. Quartz Flask for the phasing. Phasing is super, super important, especially if you want to do the ultimatums. So that's it when it comes to the gear. And the Hungry Loop, early on you cannot use it until you hit level 20 gems, right? So because of the fact that level 20 gems are not available early on, because you're simply going to be too low level, you just use a second ring to fix your resistances before you get better jewels, better boots, better helmet, better ring. Yeah, so you just use another ring in that. And the gems that you want to put in it are Feeding Frenzy, Meat Shield, Elemental Army, and probably Minion Life. You could go for like something else. You could go for Fortify if you want to put zombies in it, if you're not going to do AG. Like if I knew that I'm going to be doing zombies and not AG ahead of time, I would actually put like Fortify into this. Some zombies have like Fortify but also more damage. But this is what you want to put in a ring if you want to put AG in it. AG is Animate Guardian. And you can do Animate Guardian setup with this. And basically the zombies that I have here, I got like 8 zombies around me, and because of Cluster Jewel talent passive here, they also have a chance to taunt enemies on hit, so they taunt, taking some damage away from me. They are like giant meat shield, they have a lot of life, so I never have to resummon them even on boss fights, and they're just a big meat shield that applies the frenzy, feeding frenzy buff to everybody, and also gives me exposure through the elemental army. That's this 10% exposure. So that boosts my damage as well. So that's where you want to put those things. In terms of the other skill gems, let's talk about the skill gems now. So for the main skill, for the Soulwrest, you want to put, of course, you want to put Summon Phantasm, and you want to get it to level 21, because that will give you maximum 11 Phantasms, and then the Soulwrest will give you maximum 10 Phantasms, which means you go up to 21 Phantasms in your build. So you get 21 Phantasms, and then I recommend, if you have the spare currency, how much is Soulwrest right now? It's okay, it's like 5 chaos now, right? It was expensive at the beginning of the league. I bought it for like 50, then it was like 70, 80 chaos. Now it's like 5C. So now it's very, very cheap because it drops everywhere. So what you want to do is have 2 Soulwrests, right? 2 Soulwrests. As you can see, I got this very, very early. I got 2 Soulwrests because I wanted to have a setup for single target and for clear, right? That's what I'm talking about. This build is so much hassle if you don't know what to do, right? You're gonna have to like swap 3 gems, or your damage is gonna suck, or you're not gonna know what to do. So definitely stick to the end of this guide, because you're gonna learn a lot of stuff. So let's talk about the clear setup first, because that's what you go for first, okay? The clear setup is LMP instead of GMP, because that is lowers your damage by less, and you don't need the more projectiles. Only 2 extra projectiles will be enough to cover everything that they're going to be shooting at, because they have 100% pierce, so you don't need the extra projectiles. Only 2 extra projectiles is enough from my testing. Then you want to do the Summon Phantasm level 21. Then you want to do Controlled Distraction, Elemental Focus. If you feel too squishy, you could do like another green socket and do like Cold Penetration in here instead of Elemental Focus. If you feel like you want Defreeze, I don't care about Defreeze, I just want to do more damage, so I'm going Elemental Focus. Faster projectiles, which is going to increase the range of the projectiles. They're going to fly further, it's going to help your clear. And then minion damage as well, right, for the most damage. Of course, these gems are just like plain level 20 gems, because I didn't even flip them. I'm not going for Awakened anything. This is a very, very budget league starter setup. Then let's go to the secondary weapon, which is the single target. The secondary weapon swaps 3 gems. It swaps the LMP, it swaps the faster projectiles, and it swaps the Controlled Distraction. And it puts instead Hypothermia, it puts cold penetration, and it also uses predator support. So those will give you the most single target damage. Now, while you're swapping these gems, you're gonna notice that I have hotkeys here that change. The reason is we get the predator support from this one, which is another thing. So I wanna have it, even though I have like hotkeys in here as well, I wanna see it when I switch so that I know which setup I'm on. So I have this signal prey here, not because I'm using this hotkey, because I'm actually using like Control Q or Control E to apply it, but I wanna see that I'm on this setup, right? So you wanna have distinct hotkeys, but you wanna have every single other hotkey the same pretty much, right? And also while clearing, I wanna have like the zombies here. So switching that should basically change this, right? Because you're gonna be applying this debuff. Let's talk about the rest of the skill gems. So we already talked about some auras. So we got Calling Strike with Scarion Golem, because we want the Calling Strike, especially for bossing. It's very, very important. It's basically like 10% more damage. Hatred, Scatterbots with Bone Chill, and then Zealotry, right? So those are the auras that we have in here. In terms of top here, we got Raise Spectre, Minion Life, Life Tap, and Meat Shield. You don't necessarily need Meat Shield. I mean, your Spectres might die without the Meat Shield, and you could use Frost Bomb, right? So you could have like Convocation in here because it's gonna gain the levels from +2 minion gems, and have Frost Bomb here. Frost Bomb will apply exposure. I decided that it's more convenient to not have the Spectres die, but instead sacrifice the 5% exposure from Frost Bomb, because we already are getting exposure from the zombies, right? So as soon as I swapped to the zombies and I got my my Hungry Loop setup, I switched out of Frost Bomb and I got my extra Meat Shield for the Spectres, and they became much more tanky. So now they don't really die. So that's the setup in here. The setup for the gloves, you need like green gems, right? Ideally, you would like to get Enhance, right? Because Enhance with Sniper's Mark will give you much more damage. Before you have Enhance, you just use Second Wind, and then you use Smoke Mine and Dash for mobility. It's a lot of mobility, is like the best setup you can use. Now let's go to the difficult part, okay? The difficult part is the Arcanist Brand setup. And now let me address why I'm using Arcanist Brand setup instead of the Cyclone setup. The Cyclone setup is, number one, slower, because you have to Cyclone, so that slows your movement speed. So you are definitely slower, right? Number two, it is less damage. The reason why it is less damage is because you are going to be summoning your minions more and killing them off, removing the frenzy and power charges more at a faster pace. And then you're also going to be missing the Blade Blast, which means you're also going to have to either the Frost Bomb to hit the enemies to apply the elemental equilibrium, or you are going to have to spin on top of them, which is going to make you much less tanky, much more squishy, right? So it's like way more squishy. Even if you have like boots with Fortify, or put that in chest, but like ideally, if you didn't want to switch anything else on the setup, you just get Elder Boots with Fortify, right? So that you can also support that with Fortify. You would still be more squishy with Fortify, because you would have to spin on top of the enemy. Like imagine like spinning on top of a Phoenix or Minotaur or whatever, right? You'd just gonna get wrecked. So this is faster, this is tankier, and this is more damage, because you can also use Blade Blast, which you cannot use with the other Cyclone setup. That gives you also Unnerve, and because these Spectres cast spells, that is 10% more damage again. So more damage, faster, and more tanky. There is no question about it. The brand is way better. However, it is less comfy to play, right? Like I said, this is not a beginner-friendly build. If you are a beginner, most of what I'm talking about is probably gonna sound like gibberish to you, like Chinese or I don't know, unless you're from China. But this is not an easy build to set up, and this is a best example of that. When you're doing bosses, like let's say you're doing Shaper, like you have to take out this gem, you have to set up hotkeys for Desecrate and Bone Offering, and you're gonna have to use Desecrate and Bone Offering. You're gonna have to use it like 4 or 5 times if you wanna go to the max, and then put that in, and then the boss starts, and then you do stuff, right? So you're gonna have to like summon that if you wanna spawn them before the boss. You don't have to do that while mapping. While mapping, you just put the brand on the first pack and they just start summoning those, and you just run, no problem. But for bosses, you're gonna have to do that. And also the order of these matter. These gems, the order matters. I was testing this a lot, and this works kind of unintuitive. I think it's different than cast on crit or something, because here's how it works, okay? The Arcanist brand will, the sockets have numbers. Imagine the sockets have numbers. This is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4. Those are the numbers, okay? If it's a 16, that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4. The Arcanist brand, here's the rule. It will cast the spell starting from the lowest number, regardless of where the Arcanist brand is, and it will skip itself, right? So if it's here, it will start from this one. If it's in number 2, it will start from 1 and then jump to 3 and then go 4. Because it will start from the lowest, ignore itself, skip over itself, and then it will go to 3 and then 4. If it's in 4, it will start from 1. If it's here, it will start from here, here, and then go skip through itself and go to here. So you need the colors to be in the right order. You need the colors to be in a way where you can put Desecrate in a lower number, in the lowest number. You want Desecrate in number 1 or number 2. If you have Arcanist brand in number 1, then you just put Desecrate in number 2, that's fine. Then the higher number than that, you want the Bone Offering, and then above that you want the Blade Blast. Blade Blast is supposed to cast last. If you don't get this order correct, right? If you do this, if you don't know what you're doing and you just put it randomly, right? You are going to have half of the damage that you would have otherwise. While you're mapping, you're gonna have 5 to 10 phantasms instead of having 21, right? With this setup, you're gonna have 21 phantasms while you're mapping, while you're doing bosses, and everything is gonna be great. But if you get this setup wrong, you're gonna have way less damage because your Arcanist brand is like gonna do Blade Blast, and then it's gonna do Bone Offering on nothing, and then it's gonna do Desecrate, and then it's gonna do Blade Blast again, and then it's gonna summon the Spectres, you know? So it's gonna be like way delayed if you get this order wrong. And if you get it correct, then it just does Desecrate, Bone Offering. Bam, you got Spectres immediately, right? Not Spectres, I mean Phantasms. So that's the order. Super important. Okay, what else? Let's talk about the passives, okay? In terms of the passives, this is very straightforward. You just go for all the minion stuff. You get the minion reservation. You get some block in here. It all is gonna be in POB. The important part is the jewels, right? So jewels are super important, and the jewels that you want ideally are like life, res, minion cast speed, minions deal additional cold damage or fizz damage, right? You can also use minions have chance to hinder enemies on hit with spells. That's gonna slow the enemies. So even though I have elemental focus, I can still slow the enemies. You can also, you also want to use careful planning in this spot because that will give you dexterity. Removing this will like get me down to like insanely low dex. So if you want to use max level like hypothermia, cold pen, faster projectiles, LMP, you need the careful planning gem in this jewel in this exact socket, right? Then you can also get minions deal additional fizz damage, chance to blind on attacks. Zombies, my zombies also blind enemies, right, as well. So chance to blind on attacks is also very useful when you have the zombies. Additional cold damage, hinder, yeah. So for the cluster jewel, you want to have one cluster jewel. It doesn't matter really how many passives it has. It can be 12 passives, it can be 8, it doesn't matter. Ideally you'd get like some good passives on this, or something like increased attack and cast speed on the smaller ones. That would help you. Anything that gives you more minion damage is gonna be good. This one is good, Call to Slaughter, because that gives your minions created recently 10% cast speed and 30% movement speed, so that applies to your phantasms. That's a lot of damage. And then for the small ones, the very important thing is Blessed Rebirth, right? The Blessed Rebirth makes it so that minions created recently cannot be damaged. That allows you to use the passives that give you like more damage on full life, which is the renewal, right? So you can use renewal on the large one and on the medium one. That is 5% chance to deal double damage when minions are on full life, and if they're created recently, which phantasms are because you keep creating them from the brand, every now and then you get the refresh. Every few seconds you get new ones, so they will not be damaged, so they will be doing 5% more damage. The taunt is nice, but not necessary, and the life from death is also very nice, because not only you get the regen when minions died recently, which means like when phantasms get replaced by the new ones, that they are counted as dying, and that also recovers 4% life on your other minions. So for example, specters get healed by this. So this is very, very strong. So that's Blessed Rebirth, Life from Death is very good, Renewal is very good if you have the Blessed Rebirth, and then Hulking Corpses is nice if you have the zombies, but you can also get Taunt on like a random jewel as well, right? And then of course we're using Avatar of Fire, so that we're only dealing fire damage with our Frost Bomb, or in this case with the Blade Blast. Again, you can save a jewel slot, which this look at, everything has fucking gems. You can save a gem slot because everything has gems, because we need so many gems if you're using the Blade Blast setup, right? Because that will apply the elemental equilibrium, and that will greatly increase the damage, right? Because you're doing fire damage, so that means the cold res is going to be lowered. So that's it. For the passives, the first thing you want to take is Commander of Darkness. Then you want to go for either Mindless Aggression or Plaguebringer and Mistress of Sacrifice. That's going to make you tanky with the Bone Offering, right? So those are the passives. Everything is going to be also in the POE. This build has like 65 block, 40 spell block or something like that. So it's decently tanky while you're running through the map or doing the ultimatums. What else should I talk about? You're gonna see some footage as well at the beginning of this video, and maybe I'll put like a fight or something at the end of this video, so that you can also see the build in action and how it looks like in terms of the bossing. And that's basically it. I definitely recommend this build if you're like a more advanced player, and if you know what you're doing. You're gonna be like, holy shit, this is cheating. I don't need a 6 link, I don't need a 5 link, and but you still need some things, like you need the 4 green triad and stuff like that. But the build feels really, really strong on like a day 1 budget. If you go to POE Ninja, you'll find that in the day, like if in the day 1 snapshot, I already had all this gear. I didn't have the Hungry Loop because I didn't have like level 20 gems, but I had all my gear at day 1, like all the gear at day 1. At day 1 I was ready to do Shaper. So this is super, super quick to set up if you know what you're doing, if you have the life searches and so on, but it's extremely complicated, so I do not recommend it to players who are very, very, very like beginner players who are not sure. Like if some of the things that I said you don't understand what I mean, maybe don't go for this build. Otherwise you can just ask me in the comments below. I'll try to answer all the questions I can, but this build has so many different mechanics that it takes advantage of that make it really, really good, that it's a very, very interesting build. So that's it. Next I'll probably make a video about map sustain, because I think a lot of people have issues with that, and then we're gonna be doing a mystery build. We're gonna be making the meta defining build after this one, but that's gonna come in the future. You can check out the new build and also some action maybe with this build if I'm doing some boss carries on my Twitch channel, on Asmodeus stream on Twitch. Thank you so much guys for watching, and see you next time. Bye bye.